Hey, my name's Jerred Moon, and I'm part of a group of underground athletes you've probably never even heard of before. Most of us don't even have gym memberships. We don't have every piece of equipment known to man, nor do we have a ton of time to train. And we don't need it because we're achieving amazing things without it. We are garage gym athletes, and these are our stories. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast. Jerred Moon here with Joe Courtney. What's up, Joe?
What's up? Happy post-race.
Post-race day, kind of. Close to after the day. But I have to ask you a question first. Kill Cliff or Fit Aid? Kill Cliff or Fit Aid?
Fit Aid. I didn't see this question coming at all.
I asked him before we clicked record, and I was like, damn it, I wanted to do that for my vanilla. You got me with the vanilla chocolate, so I wanted to ask him Kill Cliff or Fit Aid. So Fit Aid, why Fit Aid?
I definitely like the taste of the whatever the regular one is and the golf one. They just taste so much better. Kill Cliff is kind of got that artificial sweetener aftertaste, even though it says no artificial flavors, but it's got some sort of sweetener that just leaves kind of a weird aftertaste.
And I know
it tastes a little bit too artificially sweet, whereas Fit Aid is just like a casual sweet.
And I know where Ashley sits on this debate. She's a huge Kill Cliff fan. So I guess I guess we'll have to pull the team.
Too. I don't know why.
Is it a female thing?
I was going to say that.
We'll have to. Because
Kill Cliff.
Do you know which one I like better?
Fit Aid.
Fit Aid. So this is this is an interesting theory. We're going to have to take this to science after this.
Peek behind the curtain.
All right. Well,
behind the layers? I don't know.
Let me go fact of since I didn't really do a fact of the week last week. I want to. So there's been a lot of talk in the fitness space about the power of heat. We've even talked about it going back so far as the Better Humanology podcast. Like heat and all the benefits, hyperthermic training, health related. So I wanted to bring this up. This is actually, I'm just going to take the highlights from it. But if you remember Alex Hutchinson, he was on the Better Humanology podcast, wrote the book Endure. Awesome dude. I'm a huge fan. He wrote an article about it recently. And it's just kind of the health benefits of heat exposure. And here they are. So Hart said Chris Minson has shown that 8 weeks of hot tubbing produces really profound changes in markers of cardiovascular health like blood pressure and artery stiffness, perhaps due to increased blood flow when you're hot. Brain. Recent data from a multi-decade study of 2,300 Finnish men found that those who hit the sauna 4 or more times per week were only a third as likely to develop dementia or Alzheimer compared with those who took just one sauna a week. And then lastly, muscle. In a 2017 study, participants showed a 17% boost in muscle strength after 11 days of sitting in a heat chamber at roughly 120 degrees for an hour at a time. The technique might be particularly relevant for injured athletes or those recovering from surgery as a way to maintain their muscles when they can't exercise. And if you read his entire article, you can. His little column at Outside Magazine is called Sweat Science. Maybe one of the only things that I read, I'd say on a regular basis, because Alex is the man. And he has a lot of good information. But if you want to read the full article, he talks a lot more about heat exposure. Dr. Rhonda Patrick has a podcast called Found My Fitness. She's also gone deep on this heat stuff. And that Finnish study is what she clings to when she talks about it. And the only thing I've come across when studying these things, so the muscle one, 120 degrees, hot tub, hot tubs are typically anywhere from 99 to 110 degrees, something like that. But the brain one with the Finnish dudes, I think the sauna had to be 170 degrees. So pretty freaking hot. Really high heat exposure. So just something to keep in mind. I think I'm training, my gym now that I have that, my garage now that I have that thermometer gauge, I'm training at a pretty regular 100 degree temperature, just 100 degrees flat is about where it sits a lot of times. And
our life next year is going to be like that.
Yeah, and it's good for you is the main thing. I don't think that everyone should just jump right into it. I think that there is an acclimation period. Like when I moved back to Texas, I definitely had to get reacclimated, and now that I'm acclimated, it feels a lot better, and I actually enjoy it. But that's the fact of the week. I feel like I delivered on my fact of the week this week.
That was a great fact. It's does that say that it comes back to blood flow again? Everything coming back to blood flow?
Yeah. Well, and there's a lot of stuff, but blood flow, heat shock proteins, there's a lot of crap going on apparently when your body is stressed. So go get hot. Go do it. Or don't complain when your garage is hot. Just think about all the good it's doing for you. That's a real takeaway.
I always, even though the heat workouts suck to do, I always much more prefer it to be hot than cold because, the more I'm sweating, the more I actually feel like I'm doing something too. And now science says heat is good.
Yeah, there's nothing good about cold. Actually, there's plenty of science on cold exposure too, but cold's just way worse.
Like recovery.
Yeah. All right, man. What happened this past week? How you doing? How's life? How's training?
Pretty good. It was a deload week, so I was just kind of doing some balancing, normal things like that. Some running, some other stuff. Not too much to go over with my updates. Pretty boring week.
Well, the deload week for me was perfect because it led into the race. Like,
yeah.
It's almost like I planned that. It was
almost
the
mercy of thousands of athletes.
Yeah, like the deload weeks happen where they're going to happen, but when a deload week just so happens to come right before you have a 100-mile bike race, perfect, absolutely perfect. And let's talk about that. So I want to give a full bike race recap. I feel like we've been hyping it up for a long time, so why not break it all down? So a few updates.
No pressure.
I ended up getting a hotel room, but like 30 minutes away from the venue. So not like in the city, but really close. I mean, that's pretty close. It saved me 90 minutes of I didn't have to leave at my house at like 3:30 or something, or what, like that was my original plan, right? Last time we talked on the podcast, I discussed that. So I did get somewhere closer, and also a little bit further out. I like that a little bit more because it wasn't so crazy and chaotic. There's so many people there for that race. It's pretty hectic. So I did get that. I left town Friday evening and got in my hotel room and then spent, like an hour just doing basic prep stuff, like putting the stickers on my bike from the race and all that crap, and getting my carbohydrate packets ready and all that crap, right? So I did that Friday night, got ready, went to bed pretty early, 9 o'clock, woke up at 4, and didn't sleep great. They had like this really loud air conditioner that like every time it would go off, I would wake up. And I'm like, how do I stop? I guess I could turn it off, but then I wouldn't be cold. I didn't bring my chili pad, so there's no chili pad. Anyway, so this always happens to me. When you came that one year, I think my Woop was like, you got like 4.5 hours of sleep and you're 47% recovered. And I'm like, well, it's race time. Like it doesn't matter what you say.
Yeah.
So, I had to get right into it. But as far as the actual race, it went really well. So other than one mishap we'll talk about, the race did go really well. Having trained for it for the first time ever, I felt like I had trained for it. The only thing I would say is I feel like I probably was adequately trained for like a 70 or 80 mile race and not a 100-mile race. We talked about it on the last podcast. My plan was to stop every 20 miles and go. I didn't. My first stop was at 50. I didn't stop until 50 miles and just. That's not true. I did stop. I stopped at like mile 35, but it wasn't a rest stop. I stopped like honestly for probably 60 seconds to load a bottle with carbohydrate powder. And because I already had one when I started the race, so I had that one, and then I was going to have another one, and so I loaded that. It took like 60 seconds, and then boom, I was back on it. So my only real stop/rest was at mile 50, and then I just continued on. Let me see. Let me try and think of some of the recap for race. I did stick to about 50 grams, 30 to 50 grams of carbohydrate every around every hour, every 60 to 90 minutes is what I was doing. I was using the supplement UCAN, which is like this super starch. It's like this, it's a slow digesting carbohydrate supplement. You can use it if you want. I don't have any connection with these companies. It was recommended to me by a friend, so I used it. Would I use it again, or will I use it on a regular basis? I might use it again. It was annoying having to mix powder, and they don't make any form of like easy race gel or anything like that. I didn't want the race gels. I specifically wanted something slower acting like this. So I'm not going to use it in my regular training, is to answer that question. I won't be using, it won't be something I buy all the time. I did kind of like it on race day, but if I could find something more comparable that was a little bit easier to utilize, I would do that. And I'm sure there is. I'm just not, we talked about this last time, I'm not big on the eating while I work out thing. Like, it's not like I'm not real, experienced in that realm of endurance training.
Our workouts aren't long enough, except, well, your endurance thing. But did you follow your own rule and actually test out that stuff ahead of time? Or
yeah, I started using it about 40 days out from the race. Oh. I would use it, not every day. I would just use it on once a week during a long ride or something, making sure I wasn't going to have any weird, issues or problems or anything like that. And I really liked it, so that worked out. I definitely followed that rule. And that's also why I didn't switch. I was thinking about using something else during, but I was like, you already tested this. I was even thinking, when I was mixing the powders, I was like, I should throw a little protein in here. And I was like, that's not what you tested beforehand. Don't start getting crazy right before you start, or throw a little creatine in there. It's race day, you don't want to start doing stuff like that. So that went well. Trying to think of what else I have on my notes. I did get a cramp. I want to talk about cramps. The cramp was probably a mile 70-ish. And we talked about this, just you and I, my last training ride, which was just on the bike rig in my garage, I got a massive cramp out of nowhere. And I mean, everything, everywhere in my life is just dialed in. You can't point to my nutrition. You can't point to water, hydration. You can't point to electrolytes. I honestly had it all dialed in. So the only other area that cramps can peek into your life or training is inappropriate, and I mean that in the best way, inappropriate breathing or incorrect breathing patterns while exercising. So maybe you're breathing too shallow or too rapidly, only out of your mouth, never out of your nose, something like that. Because nobody truly knows why we get cramps. You can research this if you'd like. People can point to a lot of things, but it's not a 100%, oh, this is why you get a cramp. There are a lot of theories, and from my own experience, it's typically nutrition, hydration, electrolytes, or breathing. And so if I really focus on my breathing in and out of the nose, unless I'm breathing really heavily in through the nose, out through the mouth, that seems to get a cramp under control really fast. So just a tidbit for anybody who, if you experience one, because in my experience, cramps can take you out, completely take you out. Some of them are just a little bit uncomfortable, but I've had one so bad to where my abdominal muscle feels like it's getting so cramped I can't move or sit, stand upright anymore. So I've had some pretty severe ones in my training lifetime. So something to go through there. And then I got a flat tire. So that was it. And this is my big
9 miles left or something.
Well, there's a longer story to this whole getting a flat tire, and I wanted to save it because if you were watching my Instagram stories, you probably saw I got a flat 91. But I want to tell the full story because this is where I met myself. This is where I got pissed off. This is where everything broke down. But it goes back to the lesson I already know. Everyone listening to this already knows. Your dad probably told this. If not, you at least heard it on a good, after school special at some point in your life. Do things right the first time, right? You've heard that, right? Do things right the first time, where you don't have to do it again or whatever. Some variation of that, do things
measure
right.
Twice, cut once.
Sure, yeah. However you've heard it, I know it. Everyone knows it, but I didn't do that. Every year I've done this bike race, I change the tubes out in my tires the day before because I want fresh tubes in my tires where I don't get a flat. That's not going to 100% like stop you from getting a flat tire. But if you have an old tube that has like a slow leak or something and it's not a direct puncture, it will stop that kind of flat. And so I always do that. I did not do that this time. I should have. That's thing one. And then what also happened is around mile 80, maybe a little after that, that's where the race kind of gets shitty for multiple reasons. One, you're tired. And, you're just, carbohydrate supplements not helping you anymore. There's nothing really going to help you anymore. You just need to make it through the rest of the race. And it's also, that's when a fair amount of elevation begins in the race. They save that for the end.
Yeah, I think I remember that.
It's so dumb. But it was getting even harder for me. I'm like, okay, I'm tired. I'm going at elevation now. And also my back tire is losing air. And I know it's losing air. I can see it. It's like compressing quite a bit while I'm riding. And that also makes pedaling a lot harder. It's like you're pedaling through sand now. And so I'm like, shit, I'm pretty close to like the finish and I'm super tired. And I'm like, I'm just gonna see what happens. I'm just gonna keep going and we'll see what happens. And I rode a couple more miles and my tire was still okay. And then it got a lot worse, another mile after that. And then, so I stopped, flipped my bike over. I was like, okay, I'm going to fix this. But I felt the tire and I was like, this is still pretty compressed. Like this is obviously a slow leak. It's not like like if you get like a full flat, it's just like you couldn't keep pedaling. It's not even like possibility because you'd be riding on your rim. And so I was like, you know what? They have these like small CO2 canisters. That's what I keep in my bag. So you can fill your bike tire with air real quick with CO2. It's not a permanent solution. It's really a Band-Aid until you can put air in there. CO2 lasts about 24 hours. And so what I did was I knew it was a slow leak. I put the CO2 in there in the tube. It filled it up. It felt really good on the pressure. And I was like, okay, great. I don't have to change my tube out. We're getting closer to the end anyway. Like, let's go. And so I rode like to mile 90 and my tire's going flat again. And I'm like, shit. So I get to 91 and it's basically fully flat. And I stopped. That's where like the last rest stop is before the finish line. And there's like, they have a bike station at every single one. So I asked the guy, I'm like, hey, here's my situation, man. Like I probably need to change the tube out. Like, what do you think? It's a slow leak. Do you think I can make it? And he's like, let's just fill it with air, man. I think you can make it. You got like 9 miles left. And I was like, okay, I'm fine with that. I think he was being a little bit lazy. I was being a little bit like hot and annoyed with the race not being over yet. And I was like, all right, man, you know what? You're an expert. Like, and I'm not blaming him at all for what happens after this. I'm just saying I was okay with that decision. I was like, yeah, let's not change it because that's a huge pain in the ass. It's just huge pain in the ass. And so then I was like, okay, he fills it all the way back up. We're good to go. I hop back on my bike. I'm like, dude, let's crush 9 miles. Let's get out of here. And I make it to mile 95. And now my tire is fully flat, completely flat. No more riding, no more rest stops. You're at mile 95. And that is where I met myself because I was livid. I was so pissed off that because I'm like, oh, great. Now you have to change it. You've been trying not to change it like 3-4 times now, and now you have to change it. Like a complete waste of everyone's time. Like his time, the guy, the rest stop, my time, like the multiple times I stopped to look at it and I compressed it with CO2 that one time. Like I just wasted so much time, right? And that's all eating into my race time. Now I have to fully change it out. And I am no expert. I think we have highlighted that enough on the podcast. I am not an expert at changing tires. In fact, I had never done it on the road. I've changed a tube before, but I've never done it like on the road in the middle of a ride. I've always had like plenty of time and I'm like, do that. So I know how to do it, but doing it quickly is not a skill set of mine. And so I was like, I had all the tools and I was like, oh, crap, okay, we're going to do this. So takes forever. I get everything unhooked. I get it going. I fill it. I start to fill it with CO2 and then some guy pulls up and he had an air pump. And I was like, yes, I want to use that, not CO2. So he helped me out and everything was like already good, locked into place. Tire back. It was my back tire. So, back on the chain and everything. And I filled it with air and then I crushed the last 5 miles at the highest intensity probably of the entire race, because I was so rested at that point. Like,
Yeah.
I hadn't taken any long rest. So I didn't rest until mile 50, and then I only probably stopped 2 times in between that, like 2 rest stops in between 50 and 90, and I would only stop, like if I had to pee, I would do that really fast, and then I'd stop long enough to get my water bottles filled back up so I could use that supplement more. But like that was it. I was at rest stops for like 4-5 minutes tops. I wasn't taking any real rest periods at all. And the reason being is because I really wanted to push myself. I wanted to see what could happen, but also realizing that if you do just take a little bit of a break, like that was, I don't know how long that took. Maybe it was 15 minutes, maybe it was 20 minutes. I was like ready to go. Like I could have rode probably another 30, 40 miles. Like that's how good I was feeling after I stopped to change my tire, because I just hadn't rested that long the entire race. And, there's something to that, resting. Like, I probably should have stuck to my plan a little bit more. Like, I don't think I should have stopped every 20, but maybe every 33, and like but done a longer rest in like 15, 20 minutes at each one of those stops to just rest a little bit longer, where I could hit the course with a little bit more energy, because I got pretty winded towards the end. And yeah, I didn't think I was going to meet myself at all that day. Like I was even thinking about that, like in the 80 mile range. I was like, you feel fine. Like there will be no, like it wasn't hot. I forgot to mention that a kind of a cold front, like quote unquote cold front came through. So it lowered it to the mid to low 90s, which is not hot in Wichita Falls and not hot for that race. Most of the time when I finish that race, I'm just so like pissed off from being the sun. Like I don't want the sun to touch my skin anymore, but it was kind of overcast, wasn't overly hot. That was perfect. So I was like, yeah, maybe this won't be a meet yourself event. But where I met myself is when I kind of like lost my shit at mile 95, having to replace my tire. And that's where I caught myself and I was like, okay, dude, like calm down, like bring it back to normal. Like you're fine. And, that was it. That was the place. Because it cost me a lot of time, and I did PR. I still had a massive PR in the race from the previous times I've done it, so that's awesome. But it would have been an even larger PR had no bike flat happen. So, what you got? Any questions?
So, did you pass a bunch of people that had passed you in that last 5 miles? Just to make up ground.
I mean, I don't remember all of them, but probably a good amount of them. Because a lot of people were cruising at like probably just like 15 to 17 miles per hour to try and finish out the race. And I was up at like 25 miles per hour, just crushing the last 5 miles of that race. Passing, everyone doesn't care at the end. They're like, because you're not winning.
Hey, I'm finishing, yeah.
Yeah, they're like, I'm just here. I'm so glad to be finishing. And I'm like, I'm going to pass every single person I can until I am across the finish line. And that's the attitude I took, and passed as many people as I could. But it was funny, man. Early on in the race, I saw some like old school me's, like one guy in like CrossFit Nanos, Reebok Nanos, like pounding it on a mountain bike. And he kept up with me for like, we kept seeing each other. Like I'd pass him, he'd pass me for like 30 miles. And then he was just wrecked. He stopped and like laid down is it around mile 40 rest stop or something like that? And I was like, I've been there, dude, but like I'm good. Like I'm not even gonna stop here. I'm gonna keep going. And it was funny. It's funny kind of see that stuff. But in the grand scheme of things, I had a massive PR. I'm real happy with my performance, and I honestly feel like I want to start training for it now for next year. Like that's my approach, because I feel I'm still so bad at cycling in comparison to other people there. I don't have any expectation of being first place, but I would really like to be even better than I'm progressing by an hour per year. It is kind of like my track record. I don't know if I can do that again, but I think I can. And so I'm going to try and squeeze another hour out of my time. And at that point,
what are the faster times doing them in?
You know what?
4
I don't
hours?
actually know. So I didn't know this. So there's an actual like sanctioned event, but they ride 80 miles. They don't ride 100. So there's like not, they changed it. That's not always That hasn't always been true, but apparently they wanted to cut crosswinds out of the race or something like that. So they cut these like 20 miles of the track out. And the reason they did that, just to keep all these limits. And I'm not a professional cyclist. That's what those guys are on that level. But I know people are finishing it in like 4 hours, sub 4 hours, anywhere 4 to 5. I would be stoked with. Like, yeah. I mean, sub 5. And I think that's going to be my goal. So maybe endure track for a year. I don't know. I'm decided.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I'll want to, but then it won't take place. So
my main thoughts were, and you kind of already addressed them, is that that you should have felt to do your rests a way ahead than when you thought of, because of pacing. And like I just have that pacing mentality of, okay, I'm going to rest even though I don't feel like I need to. I know it's going to go a long way now versus trying to push it wait to rest when I actually feel like I need to.
Yeah, and that I had that debate because that was my plan going in, and I completely abandoned that plan for no real good reason. I was like, I just decided kind of while I was on my bike, like mile 20, which is when the first rest stop pops up, I was like, let's just see, like, because I never really get to experience that. Like, I don't like to spend my weekend cycling away from my family. And I'm not talking about this race. I'm talking about like on a regular weekend. If I go cycling, I still don't go for more than like an hour. Like I keep all my workouts around that time frame. So I never get to see truly how long could you ride before you're like, I need a break. I did that 40-mile ride or whatever. And that wasn't bad training. That was my longest training ride. Other than that, I never really rode more than 20 miles at a time. So I should have rested, but if I do that next year, I'm going to have to be very strategic about it. Because I looked at my average mile per hour for the race, and I was like, this is better than your training rides, or like more on par with your training rides. So like to keep that up for 100 miles is pretty good. So it wasn't like I was going slow. There's only one, probably like 10 to 15 mile track where I was like, you should have rested. Like you should take a break. So maybe 1 or 2 more strategic rests than I had before.
So what about also since the 100 is kind of like the benchmark now, what about something in the springtime just as like a tune-up leading into your biking season?
Yeah, if I could find something, and I'm sure there are plenty of things out there, it's my take that 100 miles in the cycling world is like just kicking off the endurance for cyclists. I've heard of 200-mile races and all this other. I'm not doing anything crazy like the Race Across America where they go from San Diego to New York City or whatever. But I'm very interested to try out a shorter race, like you're saying. Like I would love to do like a 50 to 80 because I know I could probably just go the whole time. But at the same time, like without wanting to be a serious cyclist, like what can my honest expectations be? Yeah.
And I mean, I think was Ironman, they do like 127 miles or something. That's just one segment of it.
I think it's 112. So, on the bike. So I think about that constantly. I'm like,
how would you feel running a marathon after this race?
Yeah, like I'm like, what you're doing right now is shorter than what they do in the Ironman, and one of 3 events. It blows my mind. And then the last point I had was recovery. Recovery was great. I guess riding a bike all the time makes your body used to that. Like my knees are really sore the day of, right after. And I was a little bit stiff on Sunday, but more or less, man, I'm like, we're recording this on Monday after. And I mean, I'm good to go. So that's good to know. But I do feel, even like right now, I'm really mentally foggy, and I don't know why. I had great sleep the last 2 nights, so it's not a sleep thing. I don't know. I mean, it's probably related to the bike race, right? But it's a level of mental fog I'm not accustomed to, and nothing's really changed other than that. I'm normally, I don't know. Something's wrong with me. No, it's riding 100 miles.
I think the first 2 nights when we got back from Colorado were like 2 of my best nights of sleep in a couple of weeks. Like it was fantastic. Maybe it was just easier to breathe.
Yeah, and I think I need a little bit more sleep, to be honest, because I woke up I slept in on Sunday, and by slept in, I mean I woke up at 6, and this morning I woke up like I normally do, about 4:50, and I really felt, normally I wake up at that time and I'm like, I'm good to go. And this morning I was like, I feel like I should sleep more, but I obviously ignored that and got up. Yeah, that's it, man. That's a race. It was fun,
race.
And I'll do it again.
So, what was your official time? 5.5 or something?
Like 5:40 something.
Mm-hmm.
And damn it, that tire. Sorry, I'm not happy about the tire. I'm still meeting myself about it. Because I'm blaming, like, that's all my fault. 1,000 times my fault. I could have made it quicker. I could have prevented it. Like, just everything. I could have done so many things differently about that. If I get a flat tire again, I'm immediately changing that. Like, I might even practice 10 road tire changeouts before the next time I race that one, so I can do it in like 5 minutes or less. So if I get a flat tire, it's like not this big like mental hurdle I have to get over. I'm like, no, we're gonna do this like NASCAR style and be back on the road real fast.
This is really mean, but I think it would be hilarious if you had the tires issue again, but at mile 99, and you're just like, screw it, and just throw the bike on your back and run for the last bit.
I had that debate because I could have like something in my tire, like in the tire wall itself. There could be some other problem, not just a tube problem, that keeps puncturing it, right? And I had that thought, but you can't do anything about a tire mid-race. Like, I'm not getting a new tire. And so I was like, what was it, mile 95 or whatever? I was like, okay, if it goes out here, like if it goes out in a mile, like 96, and I'm riding on my rim, you can't finish that way. And so I was like, yeah, you will be running this bike on your shoulders. There's no way you don't finish at mile 96. So yeah, but if something like completely broke down, we talked about this before, if something completely broke down at mile 70, I'm not doing a marathon to finish it out, like I'll just be done. That's fine. But yeah, I would have ran. That's like my threshold, like 5 miles or less. I would have ran it. Anything above that, I would have had to like really like, I may have walked it for several hours and just been like, gosh, mad.
Pissed off.
I'm so mad. Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into the study. If anybody has any questions about bike race or bike race prep. Oh, I do want to talk about, but I'm going to save this for our topic. I wore an Apple Watch for the entire race, and I want to talk about that and how I did it and how the battery life did. I want to talk about all those things because I think it's important to note, but we'll save that for here in a minute. Okay. So the study today is on blue blockers. Officially, the study is called Restricting Short Wavelength Light in the Evening to Improve Sleep in Recreational Athletes, a pilot study. And so all these athletes, just like you, me, and everyone listening to this podcast, typically people who train for about an hour a day, don't have any crazy health problems. I'm not saying everyone who listens to this podcast doesn't have a health problem. I'm talking about who they kind of excluded, so on and so forth. So yeah, they're looking at, I mean, do you have any, or have you at least seen them, right? Blue blockers?
Yeah, and I've searched them on Amazon to think about getting them, but I haven't.
Yeah, so I have some. I have everything, don't I? I just like, whatever. Yeah. It's just like, oh, is this good for my health? Buy it right now. But yeah, so blue blockers, the whole idea behind blue blockers, if you're not familiar, was apparently bright lights like the sun and blue light that comes from our computers or phones and all that stuff suppresses melatonin, and melatonin is what tells us when to sleep and helps us keep good circadian rhythm. And that is why it's built into a lot of things now. Like our phones have the things that turn our phones orange. You can get things on your computer that turn your screen orange. It's taking the blue light out, where it doesn't suppress your melatonin and you're going to sleep better. And that's what these blue light blockers are doing. And people, a lot more people are catching on. So you put on blue light blockers maybe 1 to 3 hours before bed, and you start blocking out some of that blue light so you don't suppress melatonin. Because like the worst thing that you could honestly do is lay in bed with a full bright phone, full blue light on everything, and just like scrolling through Instagram or whatever, because it's gonna hurt your sleep or suppress your melatonin. And so that's what they wanted to look at is, would this help them? would it help them? So the purpose of the study was to investigate the effect of blocking short wavelength light on sleep quality and duration in recreational athletes. Their hypothesis was that blue light blocking glasses would decrease the time to fall asleep, measured subjectively and by actigraphy, and they would also increase total sleep time, efficiency, and subjective sleep quality. Man, how do I keep running into words I don't know? Like, I read this shit all the time, and I still run into words that I don't know. Anyway, subjects, 15 recreational athletes. Like I said, training 1 hour per week. The participants required to be normal, meaning no medical stuff. They had to sleep relatively normal, and blah, blah, blah. Can't take any excessive amounts of caffeine, so on and so forth. So that is blue light blocking, what they were looking to do. And drum roll, please. They found that when they were wearing the lenses, the participants reported in their journals they fell asleep 7 minutes earlier, and their self-reported sleep quality was 0.6 points higher, and participants felt more alert in the morning. So that is it did help. It did help. Do you have any, I mean, you looked at the study, do you have any like points, topics that you want to hit on? And then I'll kind of get into more of like why we're even talking about this.
Yeah, it's kind of a limited study to actually, because it's all, they wore something during to get data from that. Mm-hmm. But it was mostly subjective, and like, you're wearing blue blocker sunglasses. And my main note was, it's kind of hard to do like a double blind, any kind of a blind study. Like, hey, these block certain lights when like blue blocker lights are actively, you see different, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what they said. They tried to control for that, but like it's impossible, right? Like they basically tried to lie to the participants, and they were like, no, we just want to see how you feel in the morning after wearing these, but it has nothing to do with your sleep. I mean, I honestly think that was like their approach, and it wasn't very tightly controlled. I'm
also not sure why they kept on bringing up that if they were to do the study again, or for some reason they found it an obstacle that the glasses weren't comfortable. But like, I don't see why that matters. Like, so people will wear them less, but you're not going to wear them when you're actually in bed sleeping. It's like, oh, up until sleep, and then I'm ready to shut my eyes, then I'm going to take these glasses off.
I really feel like the person who did the initial interpretation of the study did not realize that that you do not sleep in the glasses.
Yeah.
I honestly think that. And so,
can these come in goggle form?
Yeah, you don't sleep in them. It will serve no purpose once your eyes are closed. So yeah, that's it. And so the main reason I wanted to bring this up, because it's just another tool in the toolbox, right? So we talk about these things. I do use blue blockers, but not religiously. I use them periodically, and I probably should try and use them habitually before I give an official thing. But like, I have never noticed a significant like. I mean, I've worn them weeks at a time and then gone weeks without them, but never like months and months on end. I've never noticed any difference in my sleep while wearing them. But the science does say that it helps a little bit. I think it's very heavily dependent on your habits pre-bedtime routine, right? So what I was saying, things I don't do already. I don't look at my phone and then roll over and go to sleep. Like that's not a habit of mine. I don't do that. I plug my phone in and I'm kind of done. I will occasionally watch TV if I'm watching TV. I mean, we have an older TV that may not even really emit blue light. No, I'm just kidding. It's not. It is an older TV, but it's not like these crazy bright LED ones. It's nothing like that. So I think that might help. And I don't have a bunch of lights on just because I have 3 kids that are all sleeping before I go to sleep. So our house is relatively dark in the evenings before I'm going to sleep. So I'm obviously not the scientific experiment, so I can't say whether or not blue light blockers have helped me or haven't, but I do think that athletes listening to this, if you're struggling with sleep, I think that you should try them, especially if you have any of the habits we're talking about. If you're watching a lot of TV, really bright lights, phone usage, and you want to keep doing those things, you don't want to be like, well, like I'm supposed to stop all these things that I do every night, or I have to work on my computer before I go to bed, like whatever. Okay, that's fine. Try these out, and they might be of huge help to you. This study says that they were helpful. They helped people. It wasn't like a massive thing, but it helped athletes go to sleep faster, and it helped them wake up feeling more refreshed the next day. That's a big enough win and a big enough step in the right direction for me. And they're cheap enough now to where like, why not try it? Like I've said that about a lot of things on the podcast. Like if it doesn't cost you that much, like why not give it a try if you're struggling? Like I said, I don't have a lot of those habits, and I don't feel like I've seen a huge result one way or the other, but like why not give it a try if you fit in the category I was talking about? Because I hate when people are like, you got to get sleep, and they don't talk about as much of like how, like I know sleep is important, but I still sleep shitty. Like what do I need to do? Well, this is one of the things you can do is if you're looking at a lot of blue light, try and filter that blue light out with blue blockers, and you may be sleeping a lot better for it.
Yeah, I think, like you said, it's a great tool for the toolbox. It's better to clean up your habits to like try and get more, because they brought up in reference to the study that we actually went over before, is that really the best thing to help you is to be in bed longer, to just go to bed earlier. But if you can't do that, then this is a good way to me to downregulate if you do watch toward later on, or like when we have company over, like if we have people who are visiting, they don't go to bed at 8 o'clock like we do. So we might stay up a little bit later to watch TV with them. And this would be a way to be like, okay, if you do those sometimes, put on the blue blocker so you can still hang out, but then you can just go roll right into bed.
And you also get made fun of by your company, most likely. Yep. But yep. It's like bringing your chicken and rice to work. Like, it's okay, guys. You're doing something that's good for you. Screw their opinion. All right. So yeah, give it a try, guys, if all that jives, depending on where you're at in life. All right, now I want to have a very serious conversation. This might end up being a long podcast.
It'll be fun. This is.
Yeah, bike race. I knew it was going to, or bike race was going to be a long, and now we went over the study as fast as we can, but now getting into wearables, man. This is a loaded topic. I feel like we're talking about wearables every week in the Garage Map Facebook group, which doesn't bother me at all. I love talking about wearables and technology and all this other stuff. And so we're going to talk about wearables, pros and cons we've experienced with different wearables, maybe help you in making a decision if you're thinking about getting a certain wearable or which one you might want to use. But one thing I want to state right off before we get started is about data in general. I said this in articles I've written, I've said it on podcasts. Do not get in the data collection habit, like hobby. So don't collect data as a hobby. Don't do it. I don't care what wearable you have. If you're just looking at data and you're like, that's cool, but you're not making any behavioral change that could then change that metric, then what you're doing is useless and it's a waste of time. So I like to make this very clear. When I say like I like data that I can influence and affect change on. Like if I'm looking at my heart rate variability, it's only because I want to see if I can change that number, or my resting heart rate. I want to change that number. For pacing for a mile, I want to change that number. Not just like after the fact, like, yeah, interesting, going about my normal life and doing nothing. And tomorrow it'll be the same level of interesting and nothing will have changed. So that is my caveat before we talk about anything data driven wise like that. Use data appropriately. Now, which one do you want to start with?
Let's go with your Apple, because we can talk about your race and stuff.
Okay, Apple Watch. We're going to be talking about the Apple Watch, whether or not it's a good option. We'll go over pros and cons. I was initially going to say a huge con to Apple Watch was the battery life, that it wouldn't be able to handle races like what I just did. Let's say 5, 6, 8 hours even. But I did a little research and figured out, now this could also be in the con because I had to do this research and I also had to do some other stuff. So I wore a heart rate monitor chest strap for my bike race. It connected via Bluetooth to my watch, and I also had my phone in my back jersey pocket. So those three things significantly reduced the usage of my watch's battery life. So my watch was on the entire time, tracking me via GPS, telling me my heart rate, all the things that Apple Watch can do. But there were no Bluetooth headphones. I wasn't playing music on it. I wasn't doing anything other than tracking my GPS and looking at my heart rate and time. And so I use that heart rate tracker. And apparently, if it's using the GPS off your phone when it's still connected to your phone, it heavily preserves the watch battery life. So I finished this race. Let's just call it 6 hours of constant use. And I had 55% battery left at the end of the race. And that's pretty big. But it depends on how much you tax it. I know if I go on a hour to 2 hour ride with just my watch, no phone, AirPods. So I'm listening to music that's on my watch. I'm also using the GPS. I'm also using Bluetooth because they're AirPods. All those things, that can zap, like 1 hour of writing can zap it down to 55. So you have to like learn how to use it. So it's like a pro and a con, right? It's like a con that like, it's a con that I had to learn that. That's kind of ridiculous. But it's a pro that you can heavily extend battery life by doing those couple of things. So that's what I did. So pro and con there. What do you have on the Apple Watch? I have some more things, but go ahead.
I guess piggybacking, it is mostly simple to use because it's an Apple product. They make it so that it is pretty simple to use. And especially like doing the touchscreen things and making it, putting whatever apps you want on it. So that's fairly easy. My con was battery, and even just extending it to what you did, you pretty much still have to charge it every day, which is annoying to me.
You do have to charge it every day. Yeah.
Because then it's like, well, since we pretty much wear wearers all the time and always tracking your heart rate, like it's either going to be okay when I take a shower, I'll take it off and put it on there for an hour, but then I have to remember to put it back on. So that's kind of annoying to me. To me, it's also, I don't know if you would concur, but it seems I feel like it's more fragile. I need to be more delicate around things with it, just because it looks better or what. But that's what I think.
You're probably right, but I don't. Like, Apple Watch is a lot of money, so I'm not saying I want to like just like trash it. But I put the Apple Watch on when I got it at the end of last year, and things have to keep up with me, not the other way around. And I'm pretty rough on stuff, and I don't have any case, I don't have a screen protector, nothing. And I'm like, you are going to survive, Jerred Moon, or you are going to break and die. Like one or the other will happen. And my Apple Watch has been just fine. Like it might, I don't have any like significant scratches, but maybe around the edges here or there. But more or less it's held up, and I've been pretty rough on it. I wear it, like the battery thing is annoying. So I take it off at 7 p.m. almost exactly and put on my charger, and then I put it back on my wrist at 9 p.m. when I go to sleep, and it's always fully charged because it tracks my sleep. So that's how I've been doing it, but that is annoying because if I forget to do that, if I'm like, oh crap, it's 8:30, it's not going to fully charge in 30 minutes, so that is annoying. I would say, you mentioned it, apps, like being able to get different apps if you don't like something is a huge pro to me, because I've used like 4 or 5 different sleep apps now to pull different data. And I guess moving outside of the fitness thing, if this is this could be a pro or con for you. It's kind of both for me. Is it does so many other things. Like the Apple Watch does so many other things. And I guarantee, like I know the Garmin has some of that stuff built in, like you can read your messages, but I guarantee they don't do it better than if you have an iPhone and you have an Apple Watch. You know what I mean? Like it's just impossible. So that could either be a pro or con. Like I personally hate getting messages alerts on my wrist. I just hate it. So I've turned a lot of that stuff off. And my ultimate, like, okay, where would you rate the Apple Watch? I mean, I call it the jack of all trades, master of none. I truly feel like it can do anything that you want, especially in health and fitness, like heart rate variability measures, like it can do everything, but it is not the best at any of them. So, I give it a solid 7 or 8 out of 10. And that's what I'm currently using too. And we can get more into Woop, but I'm finding the Apple Watch a little bit more versatile than Woop. So I've been using the Apple Watch more than a Woop, even though I would rate the Woop better in some categories.
I do like that it gives you all the metrics that everything else kind of does. So heart rate variability, and you had to look up how to best get it and how you can get it kind of on demand, which is really cool. Does VO2 max and all that stuff, which is pretty good. And then with other apps to integrate, you can get more data, I guess, if you do more research and really want to, which is cool. But so you kind of use it as a pro, but I'm going to use it as a con almost. But it's both pro and con, and that is the apps. But to me, you're at the mercy of the apps. So if the apps fail, then the watch fails. And that's where I got way too frustrated. And this is when the reason I abandoned my Apple Watch is because something like Map My Run kept failing me like over and over. And every time I reached out to their support, the solution was always, oh, you just have to uninstall and then reinstall the app and then it'll sync fine. And I'm like, well, that's just annoying because every single time I'd have to do that. And so some of the athletes, because I've reached out to our people about solutions of whatever they use, and there are some other apps out there that everybody seems to really like. I forgot what they're called, And I never really got a chance to try them because I switched over to Garmin. But to get some of those better apps that do function best, you'll have to pay more for them. So just an additional little purchase here and there. But in the long run, it could be good if they all work out. But also, I guess unless there's like one true place to do it all, whenever I would go do a run, I would have 3 different apps going at once in order to actually do my run, and like starting and doing stuff, juggling the apps also got annoying.
So I only ever use the Apple's built-in fitness trackers. I don't use any other. I've experimented with them, but I don't like any. I feel like the GPS is less accurate when you start using third-party apps, is what I think I use Strava, and everyone uses Strava. That's like a really popular thing. But I felt like the GPS was a little bit less accurate. And so when it comes to actual fitness tracking, like I use third-party apps for sleep tracking and for heart rate variability stuff. But when it comes to fitness, like tracking my workouts, I just use what Apple has built in. They have that built in. Like you can choose like I'm doing an outdoor cycle, I'm doing indoor, whatever. Like I just do that. I've used the built-in apps. So I don't have a lot of experience, is what I'm saying, and with the other apps that you're talking about.
So, well, we do a ton of interval running and interval stuff in our training. So what do you do with the intervals? Because I don't think the workout app does that. You have to like just pause and restart as you go.
Yes. So I've mentioned this frustration before. I get very annoyed with like the very simple feature that they won't let me see what a lap time is until I'm done. They're like, no, we got it. We'll record it. Yeah, like your current lap time, I mean. But I typically just use, if I'm like on a rower or, whatever, I just look at it. Like I just look at the time. If that makes, I feel like, so I'm not like a lot of other people. I've noticed this. I'm not so like, and it sounds counterintuitive to who you might think I am, but I'm not worried about the level of precision that other people are. Like if it's a 30-second sprint and I end up sprinting for 31, because I'm having to look at it, like I'm okay with that. Because like, even with apps, like I haven't found, like if I'm going real hard, a simple vibration on my wrist or a beep, I might not even hear it. Like I might not even know that happens. So with intervals, like I honestly just look in my head. I'm like, that was 30 seconds. Okay, rest 90 seconds. That'll be this on the clock, which would annoy a lot of people, right? Because it's math in your head. I'm like, okay, you stopped at 30, 90 seconds rest. This is far out. Like that's typically what I do in interval training. And I know that would annoy the shit out of a lot of people. So that's what I do, though. Yeah.
I think I forget intervals sometimes because at times I was like, "Oh crap, was that my 5th run or my 4th?" It feels like 5. It really feels like 5, and then I go back and think and like looking at my distance. Nope, I missed one. Crap.
Yeah, if you can't remember, start over. It's always my rule.
Yeah. So the apps you kind of at the mercy of it, and then another thing that I've just discovered is that, and this is purely just because of during workouts, is I like touchscreen and a sweaty finger doesn't go so well.
Yeah.
So like if I'm trying to move stuff around or select something, it like doesn't realize what I'm doing. And then also when I was doing Matt Rye Run, because like every single interval or whatever, I would have to like pause it or whatnot. And it's like, no, I've stopped running. I've stopped. Stop. And so little things like that. And now some of this stuff might be operator error. I'm sure there's easier ways to do things.
I mean,
but
I've had that happen for sure. Somehow I have learned to like work around it, but it's definitely something that I've run into. If you get real sweaty, it can become a problem for sure.
But so for each of the 3 things that we're going over, I think each of them have their specialty, and I think Apple does have the overall smartwatch is their specialty.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think
being a smartwatch.
And so we're not talking about every possible wearable, but I've worn a lot of them. I've worn the Atlas, I've worn Fitbits, I've worn Jawbone. Like I've worn a lot of stuff, and all of those. I mean, I know a lot of people swear by like some of these newer Fitbits, but I'm just like, no, thank you. Like I've tried enough of them now. Like if they come out with something better, they lost me as a customer a long time ago by not having a good product early on. And I don't want to count my steps. I don't want to crap on anybody's Fitbit. I'm sure it's great, but it's just not for me. Not something I'm interested in. Okay, so Apple Watch, we give it a pretty fair rating. So much so, I mean, that's what I'm using. That's what I'm actively using right now, and don't see myself changing. We're going to see what happens here in a few weeks when they release the new Apple Watch. And that could have me getting another Apple Watch, or maybe I'll check something out, like Garmin. So I have not used the Garmin, so you're going to have to basically brief us on a Garmin, your pros and cons. And I think the only thing I read and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that you cannot put standalone music on it. Is that correct? Like
it depends on the version. The newer Phoenix Plus, or maybe the X Plus or whatever, and then there's the, I think, Vivo Active or whatever. There's a couple of them that you can store music on there. It goes off of your stored music, and there's even, I think they've even updated it more so that, like, I think Spotify, you can download playlists. So if you have a playlist, you can download it onto your watch
and not need your
sync
phone.
it. Right. Yeah, and then sync it to Bluetooth headphones just like you would other watches. So yeah, they have that now. I don't care for that. I still like to have my phone because it's still a whole lot easier for me to pull out my phone and change the music versus, because I like to do that a lot randomly, especially during rest intervals, and because this has it's all buttons and stuff, getting to and from the musics and selecting next and stuff like that can be a little clunky and not as smooth versus just pulling out my phone and hitting next. Well, that's what I prefer, but it still has it.
That was a big selling point for me on the Apple Watch. I had a friend who's a big runner, and he was always just running with his Apple Watch and AirPods. And I'm like, that looks so freeing after like the last 5 years of like running with wired headphones and my cell phone in my hand. And so that was a big thing. But I do like the Apple Watch being able to do, I mean, now the newest one, you could put your Audible audiobooks, your podcasts, your music, and listen to it all wirelessly, with your headphones. So I'm a big fan of that. So otherwise, like, what else? Tell me what you like and don't like about Garmin.
So with my pros and cons list, I have more pros than cons, and the cons aren't too bad. But as far as con goes, there's a steep learning curve, especially if you haven't used one like this before. I definitely had to watch a bunch of videos to see how you can program stuff, customize things, change your screens, getting in and out of stuff, making sure you're using the buttons right. Because my very first run, I would go and I would try and go back and go to my screens or something, but I hit the lap button instead. And then when you hit the lap button and you're doing intervals, it's like, oh, you're done your interval. That's the lap. I'm like, oh, no, crap. I wasn't finished the lap. I was doing something else. So there's a learning curve, and to making sure you can get in and out of your workouts. But once you get that set up and like your Garmin Connect and stuff, it works really well for what I need. Setting up intervals is super easy, and then I just set it up on my phone, send it to my watch, and then I go to my watch, select the workout, and there's the interval. It's good to go. So that was super easy. It is definitely great for anything outdoors and anything endurance. So running, trails, bike, stuff like that. That is basically
like what they do.
For.
Yeah,
that's basically what they do. So it is fantastic for that. It gets you all kinds of data with that. And like when I'm doing my intervals afterwards, I can see every single interval, what my pace was, what my heart rate was. It can do speed. It can do all kinds of like altitude, barometer, crazy things that I don't even somewhat care about. Elevation changes, all that stuff. It's really great. It was really cool for the mountain race, for the Colorado race. So I love it for that stuff. And I haven't used it for hiking yet, which I really want to, because you can download hiking trails. And then when you go hiking, you can like drop a pin, and then you can just go hiking. And then when you get to a point where you're like, okay, I'm ready to go back, you just hit to like return to start, and then it'll GPS tell you on your watch how to get back to where you came from.
That's pretty cool.
In case you get lost. So if you're adventurous like that, you can do that. My wife, whenever she leads on our hikes, she makes a lot of wrong turns, and it's putting us on a lot longer hikes than we would need to. So I said that this is like her foolproof device keep her straight. Did
she get one too, or no?
Yep, we both have one. So we're going through this together. Battery life, amazing. This is the best.
Yeah, how long is the battery life?
Without GPS, it's 10 days.
And what do you mean, GPS like constantly running?
No, so like which you can turn off too. So you can put it on lower, or I have it off normally to the last while, but on my activities, it'll wait to start until you start your activity, and then that's when there's like 3 different kinds of GPS. But with GPS, it's about 48 hours with GPS time. So
you mean 48 hours, but the GPS is running continuously? Continuously,
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So like you could do a 48-hour event with a GPS without charging it. But if not, it's about 10 days. The lowest mine's gotten since I've had it for 6 weeks has been like 23%. And it could still last me like 2 more days if I didn't work out. So battery, amazing. A lot more customizable. So like there are millions of different faces that you can put on yours that show all different whatever data that you want, and some of them look really cool. And unlike Apple, to where Apple kind of just has theirs, and only they update their own. Garmin, it's like if there's anybody out there that creates their own, they just make it free to download. Anybody else can download and use it if you want it, which is really cool.
Nice.
I find it really, really comfortable when I put it on, and this is by far bigger than Apple and anything else. It's super comfortable, the band, and it has such small increments that you can like tighten it or loosen it however much you want, and the band itself stretches some as well. So there's give. Apple, I found it wasn't as comfortable. It's rubber, but like, so I don't know if your band is like, I know you can get different bands, but you hook it on and then you tuck it under, and when you tuck it under, it tightens it. So you have
I have their Nike. I have their Nike band. That's just
okay.
a Velcro, like
okay,
not a clasp. It's just I can tighten it. I really like Velcro bands for that reason, because what you're saying, like Velcro band, I can make the exact size I need it, and not any smaller or bigger. Like nothing I have to deal with. So
yeah. So this is super comfortable now, and obviously Apple ones I could have gotten something different. It has buttons, so not touchscreen. So as I'm running, like while I'm running, I don't have to look at my watch, and I can hit a certain button to pause, to hit my lap, to do whatever, or to go back there, and to like change my screens, because all of the screens when you're in activity are completely, you can put whatever metrics, data, anything you want on there, and it's fantastic as well. So those are all the things I love.
I'm going to say, like, I'll just go ahead and say it. The Garmin looks the best. Like, it looks the coolest to me from a watch standpoint. Like, I like how versatile my Apple Watch is, but I think a Garmin watch looks cooler. Like, it just looks like a cooler watch. Like, it looks like a watch, and it looks cooler. I will say that. But we have to talk about the price point, man. They are way more expensive than anything else, really. Mm-hmm. I mean, Woop now, they have, I guess Woop technically is the most expensive because you pay for it forever, right? Like, as long as you're using it, you're paying for it. Apple Watch would be the cheapest now. I mean, I saw some of these Garmin's are like $500 and $600. I had no idea until I started to prep for this podcast. I was like, I thought the Garmin's were going to be like $199. Like, I thought they were going to, and I don't know why I thought that. I thought Apple would, I mean, Apple's tends to be more expensive, right? Like, in some regards, like a lot of their products are like more expensive than a PC and stuff, So I had no idea how expensive Garmin's were. So they do a lot, but I guess it's probably worth it.
I mean, Apple's are still pretty expensive, but with those, like you said, like they update them every year. So in 2 years, like you almost need to buy the new one. Yeah. Whereas Garmin, it's kind of known that a lot of people have their, and when I was searching on like forums and stuff like that, people have theirs for like 5 or 6 years, and they're like, well, I've had mine for 5 or 6 years, so I might upgrade now, but I don't need to, kind of thing. Yeah. Because the software updates will still be good, and they're still fine for a while, and they'll improve them. But if you just want one, so yeah, it is up there in price. But if you get them on sale, then I think they're fine and super durable. At least how this one feels. Like I could drop it. It's got a metal casing, and if you just get a screen cover, there's even like better screens you can get. But if you get a screen cover, it's good to go.
And that's what. So I mean, Garmin's the only thing left on my list that I might try out. Like I said, I'm waiting to see what this new. The only thing I want to see out of Apple is if they get any sort of increased or more robust sleep tracking. I mean, they already have it, but I'm saying like something like you can do ECG on your Apple Watch right now to check your actual heart rhythm. Mm-hmm. Like, that's pretty ridiculous. Like that's an insane feature. I don't use it at all, but the technology behind it is impressive. So if they come out with any sort of like lab quality sleep tracking, I'll be using Apple Watch for a long time. But if they don't, they do marginal updates or whatever this next time around, it won't be immediate, but my next purchase would probably be a Garmin down the road.
Yeah. I would like to look into other different Garmin's if they have different or more sophisticated heart rate monitors between devices, or if it's always the same. Because I will say that's one thing that doesn't match the price point and all the other awesome features. It doesn't do heart rate variability unless you have a chest strap, which is strange. But if you get a chest strap, you can get all kinds of like crazy things that I've never even heard of to track. So if you want to wear a chest strap, then that's fantastic. But like casually, you can't just like, hey, I want to know what my heart rate variability is today. It doesn't, but it is VO2 max still. But you just have to calibrate it.
To just talk about VO2, I don't trust VO2 max on any wrist. I don't care what your device is. I don't care. Like VO2 max like needs to be done in a laboratory, and until you do it, I mean, they might give you like we've talked about this before, but data points in general, they can give you a consistently incorrect number, which is good because then you can track that. But it is in no way a reflection of your actual VO2 max, in my opinion, because I've actually had my VO2 max in a laboratory the correct way more than once, and it doesn't correlate to what my Apple Watch tells me my VO2 max is at all. Yeah. So like, it's just, I don't think that these wrist things are, I don't even know how they think that they're doing it. Like, you know, you normally have to wear a mask and like they take blood lactate levels, like they're pricking your finger every couple minutes. Like it's a pretty serious test to do a VO2 max test. And for you to just wear something on your wrist and they're like, nah, we got it. Don't worry.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy to me.
But my Garmin does match my Apple VO2 max exactly. So
yeah, so
that's cool.
Consistently incorrect.
Yeah.
Whatever these machines are using.
But the biggest drawback with this, and I'm still kind of, I might need to look up more stuff as well and try and hack it somehow, is that the heart rate monitor and stuff between activities is not consistent. It is weird. For some reason, the run and the hikes and stuff like that, it was perfect. Yesterday we actually did river heist, and while we were doing it, like we were out of breath, we were tired, and both mine and Liz's were like, our heart rate was still in the 70s, and we were like, what the heck, I'm completely out of breath right now, this doesn't make sense. So we quit, and we for that we just did like a cardio workout.
That's why all these Garmin users are saying you need a chest strap.
Yeah.
And that, wrists are inaccurate. Wrists are only inaccurate maybe if you're using an inaccurate wrist monitor. And we can talk about that in general, but okay, so not an appropriate heart rate measure during workouts. Like
during anything, I guess you're moving your arms and stuff. And then I reached out to their sport, because then when I got on the rower, I switched to rowing, and my heart rate started off, like before I was even rowing, I was like, okay, it jumped up to 130. I was like, okay, that's what it should be. And then like 3 minutes into my row, it was down to like 60. I'm like, I'm working out even more than I was when I started. What's going on? So I reached out to their support, and they're like, yeah, well, when you're rowing and stuff, your arms are moving, and it breaks the connection with the heart rate monitor, so it's not as consistent. I was like, I move my arms when I run. I don't understand.
Yeah.
And that's
I've heard this from everybody, and so maybe it's something we should cover real quick. The difference between a chest strap heart rate versus a wrist bound heart rate monitor, right? In which all of these are Woop, Garmin, Apple Watch. And I don't know why it is, but for some reason, any wrist measure heart rate thing that I have used has been accurate. I'm sorry. Like, I don't know why people like disagree, and they're like, all wrist heart rate monitors are trash. I've never experienced that at all. Maybe with like some really crappy $30 devices I've purchased, but with a Woop, it doesn't matter the activity. When I'm Woop, Apple Watch, my wrist heart rate monitors have been fine. And the reason I say that is because I have a chest strap, and I compare that data. I like do similar workouts all the time, and I'm like, the reason I don't wear the chest strap all the time is because I'm like, it's not really any different. You know, it's reporting the same data. So why not just only wear the wrist? And the only reason I wore the chest strap in the bike race is because it would prolong my battery life for the watch not having to come on and read my heart rate through the wrist. I will say that. So with Whoop and Apple, I've had really good experience with it being accurate. My theory, I'm not a hairy person. That's my only theory. I mean, I do have arm hair, but it's not like this super thick, like something where the watch would have trouble reading through it. So I don't know why I haven't had any issues. A lot of people swear that wrist heart rate monitors suck, and I just have to disagree in my experience.
Yeah. So the thing that Garmin excels at is GPS. It's the best out there for GPS. So like, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted it, because the thing that I was getting frustrated about with using my Apple was all my runs and distances were completely off. But this, when I do my intervals, they're all pretty much fantastic. So it's awesome for that. It excels at GPS, outdoor stuff, and whatnot. And it's still good. I just need to figure out how to use it with the other stuff, or get a chest strap. So
yeah, I mean, that's a big factor for me, man. What you just said might have unsold me on a potential Garmin tryout. I mean, that's
what I wonder if other ones are specialized in other things. I think the Phoenix is for outdoor and navigating GPS stuff. And I mean, so another crazy, just random thing, which I think is awesome, even though I don't play golf, is that they have a golf function where if you go to any course it goes, oh, hey, I'm on this course. This is the hole. And it tells you, and your watch will tell you how long till the tee, like how far you are till the tee, what direction it is, just like random stuff like that. So it's great for outdoor stuff.
Yeah, don't golf at all. So
yeah, but I'm sure there might be some other ones out there. So like I know the Vivo Active, that specialty is music. So like that has the music that you can download onto there and whatnot. And there might be some other ones that have better heart rate monitors and just don't have as many bells and whistles as the Phoenix. So just comparing, I just like the Phoenix.
All right, man. Well, lastly, you and I have a lot of experience with the Woop.
The most.
I mean, we'll try and keep it as brief as possible. It's already a long podcast, which is fine with me. But, dude, we have both worn a Woop more than we've ever worn a Garmin or an Apple Watch, probably. Like, well, you may have worn an Apple Watch a little bit more, but I wore a Woop for a long time, and so did you. So we can go over our pros and cons of the Woop. I think we got a lot of athletes turned on to the Woop. But what's great about not being sponsored by anybody is I can tell you my true opinion of things. And so I'm not sponsored by Apple Watch. Joe's not sponsored by Garmin, and neither one of us have ever been sponsored by Woop. And they let me down recently, and I'm just going to let everyone know because this was very frustrating to me. So I wore it in my last 100-mile bike race, and it was awesome because I really wanted to know my strain level, all this other stuff that it reports. And I had taken about a 2-week-ish break. I think people have realized that I've been like switching between Woop and Apple Watch. But I took a 2-week break from Woop, and I was going to throw it back on a week before my race to start tracking again because I was like, I don't want to wear the Apple Watch during the race. The battery's going to suck. I'm gonna wear the Woop during the race to really have accurate strain measures. And anyone who's worn a Woop realized that this happens sometimes. It'll get into this like the data is catching up. It'll say data is catching up, which means it's going from the device to your phone and it's catching up. And the most I've ever had, like the longest I've ever had that happen is like 5, maybe 10 minutes, and then it catches up and everything's fine. This was catching up for 3 weeks, and it would not catch up. And so I reached out to the sport. They didn't know how to fix it. And they're like, we're just going to send you a new Woop. So that's good customer support, kind of, right? I mean, I'd say that's good. Like nothing's actually, I don't think, wrong with my device, but they're like, screw it, we'll just give you a new one. And I'm like, okay. But come race day, I had to completely get a different game plan with my Apple Watch and use that and was not able to use my Woop because basically the whole thing just failed me right before a very important event. So that was really frustrating for me. On the device side, and apparently this has been a big problem recently. This data catching up thing, I googled it, and like their Reddit forums and everything, like this is a problem, and hopefully they're fixing it. But other than that, I will say their customer service did respond relatively slow. I was going to say fast, but I actually think it took them like 2 or 3 days before they were like, "We'll give you a new one," and that was their first response. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so they're sending me a new one. So I say that's good customer support because they're not like just saying, this is your fault or whatever. We can't figure it out. Good luck. So that's good customer service. But I was frustrated at that. But now we can get into the actual using of a Woop because when your Woop is working, which is most of the time, that's the first time I've ever had it happen in 2.5 years or whatever. I wore a Woop, so I don't want to just constantly like bash them, but I want to be honest. Pros and cons, man. You start with let's start with cons and end with pros. So what are your cons to a Woop?
Battery somewhat. I mean, it's got about a 2-day battery life, and although after I would use it for 1.5 years solid, over 1.5 years daily use, and I think the battery started to fail some. I think I was having to charge it every other day at least, something like that, or even more frequently, slapping the battery on. There's no face, so it's purely just a heart rate monitor. A lot of people had, I didn't have so much trouble with this, but a lot of people had trouble with the bands, the different kinds of bands they had, the limited selection and like the comfortability of them and how they were.
Yeah, I had to get the Hydro band, which is like their knit. It's not the one it comes with, but because if you did anything really fast or in the water, the band would flip over on me. So after I did figure out and their bands are $15. Are we going with pros or cons right now?
Cons.
Okay, so cons, you have to buy new bands, but the bands are cheap. Also cons, and this is for a lot of athletes out there, not for us because we're founding members, not because we have a podcast, but because we just bought one so early. We paid once and were grandfathered in. everyone else, you have to pay a monthly fee, and it's really like they're like the only ones doing that. And like, I don't know. I mean, like Garage Gym Athlete is a monthly fee, so I understand like the business model, but we're providing a service that takes continual work from multiple employees on a weekly basis to provide that service. And they just like built some software, and they're like, well, no, you pay us monthly for it. And so I kind of disagree with that. I wish they didn't do that, because like it makes a lot of our athletes not want to try it, because they're like, I mean, would you rather have, if you could only have one, would you rather have a Woop membership or Garage Gym Athlete membership? And most of them pick Garage Gym Athlete membership over a Woop membership. And hey, I agree with that. Let's get your training dialed in before you just start tracking random workouts. So that was a con. You said no face. That was a major con. And part of that no face is it just has to be connected to your phone. Like, part of me, that's kind of a pro and a con, but more in the cycling stuff that I've been doing, like that's a con to me now in endurance events, is that I don't like to have my phone. I just don't want it. I don't want to carry it. I don't want it, period. I know you're different. You said you like to carry yours. So I don't like having to have my phone. And it doesn't, I stand corrected. You can leave, you can go do a workout with a Woop on, and it'll come back and it'll have all that data stored, and it'll dump it to your phone. But I'm talking about if you want to see your current speed or GPS stuff, any of that, you have to have your phone, because there's obviously no face. So that's a major con to me with some of the training I've been doing recently.
So that was actually probably the straw that broke the camel's back for us to do the Garmin, is because it is useless without service. And Liz, she's being on a ship in the Navy, she's gone for days, weeks at a time. So her Woop was just completely useless during that time. So she wanted something that, okay, she can still actually get use out of to use to track. And although it didn't upload to Garmin Connect, by the time she got back, a lot of it all stored, or most of it stored and will update. And she was still able to actually use the Garmin and track heart rate and do that stuff while she was away. Whereas Woop, like you won't even show your heart rate, even if you're connected to Bluetooth. Like, it doesn't do anything.
Yeah. So trying to think if there's any more cons before we get into pros, because I have a lot of good things to say about Woop too.
Yeah, that's all I got for cons.
Let me see if there are any more cons. I don't have any more written down. I just want to make sure I think through it.
More on the bands, like the adjusting, like for the size, was kind of a pain to me, because like you actually have to thread it through versus like I'm just gonna size down. I mean, I guess you can do it exact, but still, like the bands weren't great.
Well, this has become a con to me. This is different, but heart rate variability. So they probably track it very accurately, but my only problem with their measure is if you have to kind of read through their literature, and I've always known this, but they take a heart rate variability measure during your like last cycle of deep sleep during the night, like one time, and it's an average for a minute or something like that. Now, a lot of people are like, they don't think that that's super accurate, but like Apple Watch just takes heart rate variability like randomly, like super randomly, and like on the spot. So you need like a minute of that. But I don't know if they probably figured it out better than me, but I'm starting to disagree with that measure of heart rate variability, because they're taking it one time. You can't take it by yourself. That's the main con I'm getting to, is like, I can never be like, okay, well, you're saying I had a really crappy heart rate variability last night, but that was during 1 minute of my last phase of deep sleep. Like, what was my average for the rest of the night? Like, how was I otherwise? And they base your recovery score heavily on that one reading. You know what I mean? So like it's heavily based on that. So I just don't know if I fully agree with it. And that's getting into like the, some of the foundational elements of what makes Woop Woop, is like whether or not you agree with that. So I really wish if they did, this would be a game changer. If they would just like unleash the heart rate variability, give us more data on HRV, and not put us in this box where we can only use it how you say we can use it. That would be my last con, and kind of a big one to me. But let's get to pros. What pros do you have on Woop?
I like that, especially now with my somewhat Garmin issues. I like that all workouts are pretty much treated equally. Like when you label a workout, that's all it is a label. Yeah. It doesn't actually affect it. And I mean, there's some that you can have a GPS on, but no matter what, it's just taking your heart rate data and and testing your strain over the time that you're working out. So like strain time, or whatever it is. And I love that versus Garmin. If you do a strength or something else, you might get completely different results. Or I guess Apple might. I'm not sure how theirs are, but either way, your strain is just it doesn't matter what you're doing. Your strain is your strain.
Right. And I think that's huge. And I'll go into, pros of the Whoop. We talked about jack of all trades, master of none with the Apple Watch. This is the exact opposite. This is the master of one. Like it is there to optimize your training. How many habits I changed in my life after getting a Whoop 2.5 years ago, like not drinking alcohol anymore because I could see it suppress my heart rate variability and increase my resting heart rate. Things like that changed my habits, made me focus way more on sleep. Like how much behavioral change it can make for a human being if you actually listen to it. Going back to the don't just collect data for data's sake. Like if you actually listen to it, you can start to manipulate your recovery scores and your heart rate variability and resting heart rate. So it was a phenomenal device for those 2.5 years. And it's not that I'm done using it. I'm just I'm not super thrilled with their new features.
I was going to say that too.
And so, that's kind of in the con. Like they got more like they wanted to do like Snapchat stuff with their photos and all this crap. And I'm like, when did we move away from being like the athlete's device to being like the social media device? Things I just don't care about. But they made some huge upgrades for athletes and being able to. Another pro, like their software, that no one can touch it. Like I mentioned, having to pay for that fee as a negative, but there is no other training platform I see that gives you that data from what you can see on your phone to what you can see online. Like if you are seriously training for something, there may not be a better device than Whoop, in my opinion, because learning how to peak, learning what to do, what not to do is huge. It can pull zones of your heart rate data and all this stuff. Their software is really phenomenal.
Simple to use.
That's another thing. Like I wish they had a face for some of the like endurance tracking, but that was also something I loved. I love just like, I don't have to fiddle with anything. Let's just work out and, we'll see. And I would typically wear, if I'm wearing a Whoop, my left hand has just an Ironman Timex watch. And that's how I do intervals and time everything or whatever. And I liked that. I really like that setup. It's a little bit more freeing for me. And so I really, really do like the Whoop for, a bunch of reasons I just mentioned there. And yeah, software.
I like the teams.
The team's awesome. We have a Garage Gym Athlete team. Like being able to see everyone else's data and stuff is really cool.
Yeah, you can actually connect. Garmin is lacking in that somewhat. For theirs, they make it so you can actually like and comment on people's workouts and stuff. But it is so hard to find people and then to add people onto groups and to manage that anywhere. Like I go to the Connect app and you can almost do nothing. I have to go through their actual website, and then like searching for people isn't that easy either. Like you search a name and then like everybody with a name like that pops up. It's like, well, I don't know who this person is. And then that's the only way they can also like accept to go into the group and stuff like that. So their Garmin Connect, the group needs to be updated, but Whoops is really, really good for teams and then seeing how things stack up and how things are.
And apparently Whoop 3.0, which neither one of us have, that's my debate right now, is like whether or not I should do it. But the Whoop 3.0, they are touting a 5-day battery life with the newest Whoop. So that might fix one of those cons that you had. To be honest, if a Whoop made like a simple watch face, something to where I could just see some data like running or whatever without my phone.
Time and heart rate.
Like I'd be done. There would be no Apple Watch. There would be no Garmin. And so it's funny how it's just like these little things that I didn't care about for a long time. Then now I'm like, damn it, I kind of wish I could see this now, So I really don't think that there is a best category. Do you have any more pros? Because we could kind of wrap this up on the...
No, I don't have any more pros, but I just have a wrap up for all three takeaway, I guess.
Yeah, you go with that, and then I'll give mine as well.
So Whoop, to me, superior heart rate monitor compared to the rest of them. Some of the heart rate variability that you mentioned isn't ideal, but I think
their sleep tracking is pretty amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. So their heart rate, that is what they excel at, heart rate monitor. Apple is a great smartwatch. It does all the kind of stuff that you would probably want to do, but maybe it's too far spread out. So depending on what you want to specialize in, but it does most of or everything what you might want, but it's a smartwatch. And then Garmin, outdoors, GPS, things like that is what it's going to excel at.
Yeah. I would, to kind of give my recap, I think Apple Watch, jack of all trades, master of none. So you kind of have to factor in your daily lifestyle. Like, would the Apple Watch be an amazing fitness tracker for someone who's relatively serious but not super serious about fitness, but also likes all the other features like getting text messages and the million other things I don't even know about that Apple Watch can do? So like, do you want a lot of more lifestyle features plus a pretty robust fitness tracking system? You know, it's a really solid jack of all trades, master of none. Garmin, in my opinion, I don't have any experience with it. It sounds like that heart rate issue you mentioned would be a huge piss me off type thing. So I don't know. I'll keep, I know someone's going to chime in after this podcast. Like people are going to
That's fine.
Light it up. Let us know. But Woop, probably the best athletic training tool that you can get. We want a few more features out of them. Maybe the Woop 4.0.
Like so close.
Yeah. Like I said, the Woop may have added like 5 years to my life by helping me realize what alcohol does. And I was not like a drinker. I'm talking like, I don't drink at all now just because I know what it does to my body. And that's probably heavily based off of Woop data. I sleep a lot better, and sleep tracking is not a huge thing for me anymore. Like I mentioned it, but I'm already doing everything I can in my power to get the best sleep possible. So I almost don't care about sleep tracking that much. That's why I almost forgot to mention on the Woop. And a lot of people have mentioned the Oura Ring, which would give like neither one of us can talk about because we haven't used it. I know a lot of people who have one. We tried to get the Oura Ring CEO on our podcast. That just kept falling through. And we probably still could, but the only I've looked at the Oura Ring, and it's so sleep heavily focused. I don't want one right now.
That's what their specialty is.
Yeah, and like they do a lot of this stuff. So if you want to like message me and tell me, hey, Oura Ring gives you heart rate variability averages and gives you a readiness score, and I know everything that an Oura Ring does. The reason I don't care about it that much is because I'm way more into a really robust in-training tracker and not as much what everyone's going to talk about with the Oura Ring, which is a lot of this recovery stuff. I'm already doing everything in my power to make sure those things are the best possible, so I don't need gee-whiz data from Oura Ring. If anything changes in my lifestyle or circumstance, I would definitely consider it. Having a lot of people talk to us about sleep on the Better Humanology podcast, we had multiple recommendations that said, hands down, the best wearable for tracking sleep is the Oura Ring. So if that's a big deal for you, something that you want to look into and give an honorable mention, I just don't think that I don't really think they're in the fitness realm, in my opinion. Like I know you can wear it, but I just don't think that we're talking about GPS and we're talking about tracking and like they're not even something they're thinking about. And so notable honorable mention, but not something that I'm considering right now. So
actually, just another note on that. I'm glad you brought it up. Something that somebody brought to my attention is that Oura Ring will actually pair with Garmin and Garmin Connect. So like Oura Ring will feed in your data, like heart rate, and it does heart rate variability and sleep and stuff into your Garmin Connect. So those actually pair well. And
I also read that Oura Ring will dump into Apple Health data, which I think is really cool because Woop doesn't play nicely with anyone right now. Woop wants the Woop app with the Woop band. They're trying to be very Apple right now. They just made it to where the Woop 3.0 can connect its heart rate information to like your PM5 rower and stuff, and that's not something the last one could do. They were very like proprietary Woop and Woop only. But yeah, so Oura Ring definitely something on the fringe for me. I'm very aware of the product. If you're wondering why we haven't talked about it, I kind of explained that. But for me right now, for the foreseeable future, it's going to be Apple Watch until their announcement of the next one, and then I'll make a decision. You're continuing with Garmin for the foreseeable future?
Oh, for sure. I still love it, and I mentioned the learning curve as a con, but as I figure out more stuff about it and see the best tips and watch some videos and read some forums and stuff, I think I'll finally tune it, and it'll still be a watch I could use for years, and I still love it. Yeah, and I have a new Woop coming in, so I'll probably be using the Woop again shortly. It's not here yet, but when it gets here, I'll probably be using Woop again. The Woop gives you some really solid data. I don't want to like act. You use something for so long, I can't make any more changes like we were talking about. Like how am I going to affect my heart rate variability anymore? Like you can't do those things as much after you're doing everything you can. So that's why Woop got less useful. But I think it's a million times useful for at least a year or two. So definitely something everyone should look into. Now, let's quickly, before this podcast ends up being 5 hours long, go over the workout, man. Perpetual Motion. You want to brief it? Yeah, I can go over it.
All right, Perpetual Motion. Joe will brief it for us.
So, to be done back to back, you will start off with a 7-minute AMRAP of wall climbs. It's when your feet are on the ground, hands and push up, and then you're walking your feet up the wall, chest to the wall. 7 minutes AMRAP of wall climbs, then 3 minutes of burpees. Then you rest for 5 minutes. Then you do 7 minutes AMRAP of push-ups, then 3-minute AMRAP of double unders. Then you rest for 5 minutes and then do 7-minute AMRAP of sit-ups, and then 3 minutes, as many reps as possible, of thrusters, just an empty barbell.
Yeah, so I'm going to give tips real quick. I'm not going to give any strategy tips. I'll leave that for you if you have any on like the whatever, the movements. But my tips here, Perpetual Motion is very much you're in control of whether or not this is Meet Yourself Saturday or just a friendly neighborhood workout. So you have to make this a Meet Yourself Saturday. 7 minutes of wall climbs can be a Meet Yourself Saturday if you're doing them fast enough. That's like one of the most terrible exercise possible. So is burpee, so is a thruster. So if you're actually taking the as many reps as possible seriously when you execute this workout, it is a Meet Yourself Saturday workout. If you are trying to it's only 35 minutes. If you're trying to overly pace, did I get it right? 10, 20, it's really 30 minutes of work and 2 5-minute rest periods. So if you're just trying to pace it or slow roll it, not a hard workout. Like you're going to want to do it again if you go slow. So take the AMRAP seriously and make this a Meet Yourself Saturday, and it will be. Otherwise, it won't be. And that's probably the only tips I'll give, and I'll let you throw anything you got.
Since you're going to be doing a ton of reps, don't go to failure. Try and pace out yourself a little bit. Maybe don't do what Jerred did and go all 50 miles and then stop. Dial it back a little bit. Maybe you try and go for a minute and then rest for 15, 20 seconds and then go again for the 7-minute ones or something like that. So just keep an eye on that, because really you're just going to reach muscle failure and then you're just going to be sitting around.
Yeah, and wall climbs are terrible. Like anytime we do, I program an excessive amount of inchworms. People always like lose their minds.
Oh my goodness! Yeah.
It's terrible exercise.
Wall climbs were in when I went to my first CrossFit workout. Wall climbs were in it, and it's just I smacked that wall. It was bad.
Yeah, wall climbs are fun. All right, man. If someone made it to the very end of the podcast and they're not a member of Garage Gym Athlete, why should they join?
Well, if you want to talk more about wearables and share your opinion, we talk about them in the group as well, because I'm sure even in a couple of weeks, someone's going to be like, hey, I just got this device. What do you guys think? And you're like, all right, then crack the knuckles and let's dive in.
Yeah,
sir.
In all seriousness, like if you want to, to all current members out there, if you want to open up any sort of discussion about wearables in the group, we really are all about it. We want to do this podcast because I feel like we talk about it a lot in general, and now we can kind of point people here as a resource for our most up-to-date information. And maybe we could do one of these like every 6 months or so, since we're a big wearable community. But yeah, let's talk about it. Let's cover some more wearables and dive into some useful data. All right, that's it.
Useful.
Yep. Peace. Thanks for listening to the Garage Gym Athlete podcast. If you want to learn more, go to garagegymathlete.com. You can learn about our training. Let us send you a copy of our book, The Garage Gym Athlete, or you can even get featured on the Garage Gym Athlete podcast. Thanks for listening.